Welcome to Black Angus Reviews. I know, I'm way behind talking about Black Panther. Yeah, I know. The thing is, I saw it in March, and I didn't start creating content until April, with Soilo, a Soil War story impending. I originally liked Black Panther in the MCU. His Civil War intro was solid, and he had a complete story arc with closure for his story thread. I proudly had his bank bust, which was highly detailed, and I only paid $7 for it to boot. But then I saw Black Panther, which I didn't even realize came out during Black History Month, and soon sold that bank. Marvel took an interesting but not really popular character and told a muddled, unmemorable story with CGI worse than Episode 1, a film that's 19 years old, mind you, expecting me to like it just because I'm black, even having a rap/hip-hop heavy soundtrack, ignoring the fact that Africans and American blacks are completely different cultures, separated by 400 to 500 years of development. Looking back, I'm very troubled by Black Panther as it pertains to the MCU. Not only have they used it as an excuse to interject politics into a universe that was before very objective with political arcs, most notably with the argument of borders and sovereignty in Civil War, and the Arab conflicts of recent memory as a moral dilemma for an arms dealer in Iron Man. Both stories never steer the audience to a clear answer. The setting of where Black Panther comes from is also very problematic going forward. If continental conflict is avoided in Wakanda with bordering nations, it won't make sense as a fictitious country is located in the Alemi Triangle in East Africa, a contested area of Africa, disputed since about 1902. Not to mention how many Wakandans have died from the invasion of Thanos and the subsequent snap that theoretically has taken half of their population afterward. Look at the Israeli 6 Days War. Would you not think public knowledge of Wakanda's vibranium mine and tech ability would incite more envy than a racial conflict or simple dispute over ancestral land? Speaking of technology, go watch the first Captain America. It seemed like vibranium was a very finite resource. I expected the size of vibranium to be approximately 300 feet or smaller in size, or a standard meteor. In Black Panther, they show us the mine, and it has its own rail system. It's bigger than the Chicxulub crater. Why doesn't the Wakandan army all have Black Panther suits? They make it clear that what separates the Panther from the rest of the people is partaking of the heart-shaped herb, also known as purple drink. How not cliche.
Nigga, what the fuck is juice? I want some grape drink, baby.
Another point that is nonsensical is the elaborate plan of Killmonger. If he's Wakandan, why does he need Claw aside from maybe discovering the nation's location? Why not kill him long ago and take over his operation? Why even continue it? He's got a vendetta against Whitey, yet he aids and even saves him before killing him for a plot twist. For some reason, he uses this as an in with W'Kabi, which makes no sense because how did he know about W'Kabi's parents? Killmonger defeats T'Challa and becomes the king. Why would he not try to garner allegiance from the Jabari tribe in the mountains? They've been disenfranchised with the crown since its inception. You know M'Baku would be subservient, at least for a time, as he was bested by T'Challa, and Killmonger pwned him, making Eric that much more formidable. Lastly, there's the problem of an avoidant and xenophobic culture. Yes, people will applaud and praise Panther for opening itself up to the world, supposedly bucking its xenophobia, but logically, that would be its undoing if there's any semblance of reality. In Captain America Civil War, we get our first real awareness of Wakanda's reach and political dealings, as they have volunteers in Lagos, Nigeria, West Africa. 11 died in the bombing caused by Crossbones, which received international attention. So Wakanda can do humanitarian aid across the continent and use this as a call to arms that the Avengers need government oversight, yet they can't help Rwandan genocide or the Somali conflict. Napat, Kenya, a town in the Alemi Triangle Wakanda is located in, to Lagos, Nigeria is about 3,100 miles away. Napat to Batari, Rwanda is only 950 miles. 500,000 to 1 million Rwandans died in 1994. Since 1991, 500,000 Somalis have died in their civil war. Mogadishu, the Somali capital and infamous site of the events in Black Hawk Down, is only 1,200 miles away from Wakanda. The indictment of Wakanda is much larger than any other I've seen for a superhero. Worse than Superman and Man of Steel for all the deaths his fight caused. Let's assume the same for the Avengers in Sokovia. And how many Jews and Slavs died because Wonder Woman went into hiding after World War I? The narration of Wakanda's origin in Black Panther points out how Wakanda shut themselves off from the colonization and slave trade along with World War I and World War II. An estimated 12 million slaves were imported from Africa. That's roughly the population of Ohio currently, to give you some perspective. What's odd to me upon realizing the enormity of this, just at the amount of black lives fictitiously affected by the intentional isolation of Wakanda, makes me scratch my head at the SJW community, and how black people especially can even like Black Panther. Everything great about the nation and the character comes at the expense of 12 million slaves and their offspring in the Atlantic trade, along with 40 million deaths in World War I and up to 80 million deaths in World War II. There are those that will argue that T'Challa is a good king now for revealing them to the world, and sure, they'll probably write the story that way to fit the narrative, but I'm not fooled. There are also those, much like the people who defend The Last Jedi and say, calm down, it's just a fantasy. Well, when the New York Times writes articles like Why Black Panther is a Defining Moment for Black America, and the hashtag Black Panther Challenge raises $1 million for black kids to see Black Panther, I think it's self-evident this is more than simple sci-fi. You just hate that a black man is questioning the empowerment narrative the media has placed on this film, and who is pointing out all the flaws of the movie that is critically acclaimed, having a 97% score on Rotten Tomatoes. There's a real disconnect I can't get my head around, where our young people are buying into this narrative that you should feel guilty and even repent for the generational wealth you may inherit from your family. This is really targeting the fortune of whites who had slaves. But do they ever indict the black Africans who have benefited from generational wealth, specifically from the slave trade? These countries still have age-old divides. Just look at the country of Benin. But I doubt you've ever seen well-off Africans attacked in the same manner as the descendants of slave-owning whites, even though there's still a culture in these lands of not mixing slave descendants with trader descendants. There's a very concerning culture of making one culpable for the actions of one's group that cannot be policed. In the film, they refer to one white protagonist as colonizer, as if he is somehow guilty of owning and assaulting slaves himself, just based on his race, yet ignores the Pontius Pilate-like guilt and blood on their own hands. No, friends, I'm afraid Black Panther is, in fact, not a good movie, especially for black representation. Until next time, I'm Black Angus. Have a great night.